Once you've ruled out the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true.
And it is not a question of a little occultism or a touch of mysticism, Mr. Benton. It is vampires. It's a host of damned souls of telepaths.
I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night.
Here, the old gods aren't dead.
And what of the true god?
He's dead. He can't complain.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
You're listening to Paranormal UK Radio.
Hi everybody, this is Irene Allen, the host of the Paranormal UK Radio Show, the flagship show of the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And I'm here tonight again with my co-host, Mark Johnson.
Hello, how are you?
Kudos, did I get kudos for that?
You do. One take. I'm very surprised.
Yeah. Well, you see, I composed myself before I said it.
Gave you some reminders before I hit record, too.
Oh, tell me you've done that. You having me on?
No, don't you remember me?
You have hit record, haven't you?
Huh? Yeah, we're recording.
Oh, good. Oh, all right then. Behave myself, because I was going to call you everything under the sun just then.
Oh, well, don't let fear hold you back.
Well, I've had a busy couple of days, Mark. It's been my birthday, and today is my wedding anniversary. My birthday yesterday, wedding anniversary today, and I really messed up on this one.
You messed up on what? Which one?
All those years ago, I really messed up. I should have set my wedding day for a bit further away than my birthday. That way, I would have got 2 presents instead of 1.
My wife's birthday is 10 days after our wedding day, and she still gets 2 presents. Yeah,
I do sometimes. But then if I have a big birthday present, well, that's your anniversary present as well.
Actually, I get, since my birthday is early February, she complains because we just have Christmas, and then a month later she has to buy me another gift. I tell her, don't bother. I'm old enough right now. It's like I have everything I need. I don't really need anything.
Oh, well, my nightmare. Do you know what my nightmare is?
What?
I've got 3 or 4 grandchildren's birthdays in late November through December. And then they start again in January, directly after Christmas. The rest of them have their birthdays.
Lovely.
No, it's not lovely. It's very expensive.
That was a very sarcastic lovely.
No, it's very, very expensive time around Christmas. But then again, the rest of the year, you see, I don't have to really buy any birthday presents. So it's all over and done within those couple of months.
Well, when does your time change?
To what?
Your time, daylight savings.
Oh, God knows, Mark.
Like you would know that.
When the clock changes on my computer.
Oh, that's how you'll know?
That's how I'll know. I tell you what, I've got a clock in my bedroom and I left it. I didn't change the time on it when the time changed. I left it an hour slow for a whole year until it caught up again. And you know, and I instantly knew when it became so, became automatic. I'd wake up in the morning, I see that it was 6:30 and know exactly that it was 7:30.
See, because when your time changes, I think, before mine, and so it throws us off an hour in trying to coordinate things.
Well,
I think we're the first weekend in November, but I'll have to check on that. See,
does it go forward or does it go back? I can't remember.
Say that again?
The time, does it go forward or does it go back?
Learn the rule. It's spring ahead, fall behind.
Is that?
Yep.
Oh.
That's how I remember.
Okay. Right, so I'll wait for my clock on my computer then to drop an hour.
Okay. Once it does, let
then
me
I'll
know.
go around and set all the clocks in the house.
We don't want to be like an hour late recording our show next at that time.
Oh.
Till I get caught up to you anyway.
All right, that's the end of the silly talk, people. And what have you been doing, Mark?
Oh, just working.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What about the weekend?
This weekend I'm going up north into New York State. We're going to up to Lake Placid, where they had the Olympics Winter Olympics back in the 70s, for a weekend stay, just to try to get in one last little trip before everything turns cold here. Which it's already kind of cold. It's been in the 60s and 70s, so it's really cooled off.
I tell you, it's been so hot here today. Absolutely boiling. It really has been. And we closed down the swimming pool, so, we couldn't even jump into that.
You could run through the sprinklers.
Oh, yeah, could do. Didn't bother putting them on. In fact, we haven't had them on for a long time. I just remembered that.
Well, you've had a lot of rain, too. This has been a rainy summer. We've had a lot of rain in the Northeast.
We've had rain.
Oh, cool.
We had rain. But this last week, it's been very, very hot, and it's going to be nice tomorrow. And I expect we'll have snow by the weekend.
Probably. Yeah, the UK. Yeah.
Goes.
Yeah, you guys have like about 2 minutes of summer, and then you go straight into winter. Especially there in Wales.
Now, this has been one of the best summers, I think, for a long time. We've had at least all through the summer, I could count 4 weeks on one hand that we've had really hot weather. That's not bad.
That's not bad.
That's not bad, Mark. The worst was when we only got a few days. I remember a few years back, and there was only a few days that it didn't rain, that it wasn't cold, that it was like spring weather.
Very nice.
Yeah, well, very nice.
I'm looking forward to fall and Halloween. That's my favorite time of year.
I like autumn. Fall to you, autumn to me. I do like autumn, but Halloween doesn't really do anything for me. I live in a haunted house.
Yeah, so you deal with the spooks 365 days a year.
That's it. It's nothing different, is it?
Not really. For you, anyway.
No, there's nothing they can do on All Hallows Eve that's going to worry me, because it'd just be another one of those days.
Yep. Oh, well, you're no fun.
I know. Well, I've had a hard time of it. I've had my birthday and I've had my anniversary, and I am absolutely knackered, darling.
Well, you need
to
take a vacation this weekend.
Oh, gosh, yeah. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But with 3 dogs.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I have a dog sitter, so and someone to stay overnight. So we're getting away.
The nearest to me is 240 miles away. So 3 dogs, 1 mad parrot. There's no way I'm getting away, is there?
You should train Pickles to watch the dogs. Yeah. He'd eat them.
He would eat them.
Yep. Well, should we get on with the show here?
Yep.
I think we should.
Go.
Okay. So we want to welcome... we have a special guest for tonight. She is an author of a book called Clairvoyage, which is a collection of stories from her life as a highly sensitive, unwitting clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, and claircognizant. And Stephanie, you're going to have to go and explain each one of those. So welcome Stephanie Milanowski to the program.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you for having me.
You know why he wants you to explain it, Stephanie? Because I can't pronounce the words, although I know what they are. And Mark don't know what they are, but he can pronounce them. So it's up to you, Stephanie. Take it away.
Oh, my goodness. Well, it took me years to understand them, really. But clairvoyant is, perceiving events that are seem to be happening in the future. Clairaudient is the ability to hear voices. that, other people can't hear or aren't tuned into hearing. Clairsentient is, I think it's defined as, just a clear feeling. You can have it in the past, present, or the future, so you can see it in the future or the past. It's an all-knowing kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And claircognizant is just, it's clear knowing. Like I just see it. It's just part of understanding it. So
clairsentient is like sensing energies and things like that.
Yep. Like feeling it, and I can even smell things that aren't there. You want
to come to my house?
It's been a journey.
Well, now you really came into this. I mean, when did you first realize you had these abilities?
I first realized that I've always had them. I realized at the age of about 43 that not everybody has them. I thought that everyone had them. And that was the real eye-opener for me, is I thought that was just part of being human, that everybody has these abilities.
It's because when you grow up with them, when you're born with them and you grow up with them, it's natural to you. You don't just don't click that everyone's different and you're the odd one out.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was just so natural, and I didn't give it a second thought. But at about 43, I was on a trip, and I was just kind of burning the candle at both ends and not getting my sleep, and I got shingles, and I came down with shingles, and so I had to take a week off and just rest. And my boss at the time gave me this book and called Extraordinary Knowing, and she said, it's a pretty academic book. She said I could kind of get through it. She underlined a lot of things, and she said it's like an academic textbook. And she said, but you got time, read it. I think you'll enjoy it. And in this book, this psychologist, Dr. Mayer, takes you through her investigation into precognition and people's abilities. And I just wasn't prepared for it, because in the book, she's interviewing someone that is exactly like me and has the abilities just like I do. And she's saying how extraordinary this is, and, just mind blowing. And I just set the book down, and I asked my husband, I said, can you hear people think? And he said, no. And that was it. That was it for me. I just broke down and cried, because I realized that for the first time that how different it was for me, and how I'd just been thinking that this was, a way of human life, and not everybody has these, this ability. And I saw that just past struggles that I had, and, why things were difficult for me and not for other people. And I just all came just kind of crashing toward me. So
actually the book opened your eyes, and you could see the the similarities between you and what she was actually saying in the book.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've always had, I can go into a room and I can hear, it's almost, I describe it as, if somebody was running a vacuum in the other room. It's that constant hum. And if I tune into it, I can, make out things, like hear things. And, it would be people's thoughts. Or at work, if somebody was standing, and if my boss was talking to me about something, I would hear him speak, but I would also hear his thoughts as well. And if they were contradicting, it would make me think, well, what are you, I would be caught, like, it, kind of like, tell me the truth here, what do you really want to say? So yeah, it's just very difficult because I would hear people contradict themselves or.
I tell you, I would honestly, Stephanie, if it was my boss, I'd be saying, "You don't want to. You don't really mean that, do you?
Yeah.
Come on, tell me. You really don't mean that, do you?"
Right. Yes. Just tell it to me straight, kind of, But yeah, but at the time, I didn't, I didn't know that was what I was. I didn't really understand it to be really the ability to hear people's thoughts. It's hard to explain. It was such a way of life. I didn't question it, like, oh, he's lying to me, but he's telling me something, I just kind of put up with it.
I understand it, Mark. This has got me into trouble so many times.
Well, that's easy for you.
I'm surprised it hasn't with you, Stephanie. Because, I'm the type of person, if somebody's turning around saying, I like you, and then I read into them that they don't like me, it's a punch on the nose. It's not a compliment. They say, I like you, and I go, boof.
Yeah. Well, it did happen a lot where I would come back and, question them or, and people don't like to be cornered, so yeah, it wasn't always easy. So,
well, most people to one extent or another do have these abilities, but a lot of it is so programmed out of us from childhood. By society. I mean, I used to hear, growing up, someone calling my name. I always thought it was my mother. So I go in the room and ask her, what do you want? She goes, I didn't call you. I go, well, I heard you. She goes, it's just your imagination. Can't tell you how many times I heard that phrase whenever something strange would happen. And it wasn't until a lot later, I learned, when it started happening into adulthood and I would hear things. And as a paranormal investigator, there are several cases where I've audibly heard voices. I one time even heard a cat meow right next to me.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible? Did anybody else hear it with you?
No, but the cat I actually caught on my audio recorders during the investigation. Oh. Caught it 3 times. And the cat they used to have at this residence died the year before, and some children who've come in would see the cat walking around.
Yeah.
Well, I know now we're talking clairaudient, and in this house, I mean, you hear your name being called all the time. My husband's always coming to me, what do you want? What do you want? Keep shouting at me. And I haven't been calling him, And I quite often wonder whether there is a slight difference. When your name is getting called, is it that person thinking of you at that particular time and that other person's picking up like your thought? Or is it an outside force mimicking?
Or
it could be either.
So is it, I can't say the word,
Clairaudient?
No, that's when it's an outside force. That's like if something, Is it Claire? What's it? Or is it Clairaudient? So that's never mind. And or is it Clairaudient? Clairaudient is usually when you've got something in your house that's actually mimicking your voice or something like that. Whereas the other one, when it's just name calling, could that just be he's thought, or I've thought about him at that particular moment, and I've used the word Brian in my head, and he's just picked it up, or vice versa. Because I hear him calling me as well. But when I hear the children calling, and they're in London, then I know it's Clairaudient. You know? I know it's something mimicking. And this thing, to make it worse now, this thing has even got one of the dogs off to the tee. You know? I was in
yes.
the bedroom the other day, and it was a bark in the bedroom, and my dogs they were on the other side of the house downstairs, and none of them barked, but the bark came from the bedroom. So
Interesting. And did your dogs, did you say that they barked at it or no? They didn't.
No. They weren't even in the room. They were downstairs on the other side of the house. It's quite a large house. They were downstairs on the other side of the house, and I was upstairs in the bedroom on my own, and the bark was actually in the bedroom. It came from inside the bedroom where I was.
You know what, Irene? You just reminded me of something that I'd forgotten. Is about 10 years ago, we had briefly moved in with my wife's parents, but before, because they had a duplex and they had an upstairs apartment. And before we moved in, my wife and I walked up there and we were just looking at the empty apartment, which happened to be the same house where she grew up. Now, they never had cats in the house, ever. And yet, while we're standing there in an empty apartment, a cat meowed right next to us. And we looked around and we're looking at each other like, where in the hell did that come from?
Wow.
Well, it's obviously one of these little goblin things that's learned how to meow like a cat.
I guess.
Yeah.
So when somebody else hears it, because there's a difference, not to complicate things, but I'll walk into a home and I can be downloaded by a previous resident. I can get their life story in a split second. Yeah. And and I hear their voice. I can hear everything about it, the uniqueness of their voice, without knowing that person. And so that's different. I'm hearing it. But then when somebody else hears it, that's called a direct voice. So, and that happened to me. I was lucky enough to have
that's it. That's an AVP, audible voice phenomenon. Yeah.
That happened to my husband and I, and it's a story in my book. It's about my great aunt Florence, who died in the 80s. And my husband and I were gardening, and we were planting raspberry bushes. And he works really quietly in the garden, and I was respecting that. And we were just enjoying a quiet, peaceful Saturday afternoon, planting our raspberry bushes. And I was thinking about growing up. As a child, I used to visit my great aunt Florence and my uncle Cecil up north in Michigan, and they had rows and rows of raspberries. And my sisters and I would just eat until the bushes were cleared. And I was thinking about her and the raspberries, and all of a sudden, I hear, "Oh, Steffi, I love you," and I look up. And I meet eyes with my husband, and he said, "Did you hear that?" And then I said, "Yeah." And he just took off running down our driveway. He thought it was perhaps my mom coming over. He said he thought that it sounded like somebody was distraught. Maybe somebody passed away, and she was on her way to, see me. Yeah, to tell me. So, but he came back, and he empty-handed, with his palms up, just like, what just happened? And he said, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "What did you hear?" Because I wanted to hear exactly if, he said what I heard. And he said, "I heard, oh, Steffi, I love you."
Yeah.
And
that's nice.
It was my Aunt Florence, because my grandma, which is her sister, those are the only two people that called me Steffi. And out of the two of them, only one of them had raspberry bushes, and it was Florence.
Yeah, so, and you were thinking of those days.
Yeah, at
that time.
I mean, it was just I've never had it happen since. But it was her voice, and it sounded like it was coming from. We both said this. It sounded like it was coming from a tunnel.
Yeah,
and she had just this longing sound in her voice too, that she missed me, and it was really just nice. An incredible gift. Yeah, to have my husband experience it and be there, and my husband experienced something in this house once.
he was in the boot room. The door was open to the garden, and he was waiting for a dog to come in. And he heard a voice. He come running into me. He said, "Somebody's just whispered in my ear and called me a pig."
Oh.
Yeah, this voice, it was right up close to his ear, and it said, "You pig."
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Did he respond, or did he just...
No, he was quite upset and shocked, actually, that he'd been called a pig. You know, he knows the house is haunted. He knows he lives with ghosts. He's seen things. But for the fact that this one actually called him a pig, kind of upset him and shocked him. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
That's Herbert, Mark. Mark? Mark?
Yes, I'm here.
I said that was her.
Herbert?
Yeah, they called my husband a pig.
Yeah, Herbert being a deacon, he should he should have used nicer language.
Deacon and a blacksmith.
Twice. Yeah. Wow. I wonder if your husband would have responded if he would have, maybe apologized or...
No.
No.
Stephanie, tell us a little bit again with Clairvoyage. You list a collection of stories from your life of things that you've experienced. What are some of the highlights that have really stood out for you?
But yeah, the book is half, about me, just the journey of trying to fit in, just trying to understand all of these clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, claircognizant, trying to understand them and, understand how to utilize them, and just being my true self. And then the other half of the book is really about just experiences that I've had in my life. And a couple that stand out, that's the thing about it is, before I understood my gifts and abilities, I always put them under the paranormal category. I put them in that kind of box. And now I'm looking back at some of the things that happened, and I'm wondering, was somebody trying to communicate with me? Was that not just a ghost in the house or a spirit or, so I've had several experiences. I think, I'll have dreams. This happens weekly. I'll have a dream where I'll see something, and then the next day I'll see it. It will happen. It will,
Yeah.
So that's again that clear knowing or seeing into the future, perceiving these future events.
Yeah, my father was like that.
Yeah, it's just a couple days ago, I dreamt that I found a dog, and it was a tan dog with a white chest, kind of like a pit bull mix. And I love animals, and I found the dog in my dream. I found it, and it was really hurt bad. And I showed it to my husband. My husband said, "What are you going to do with it? It needs immediate medical attention." And my husband implied to me that it wouldn't live. It wasn't going to survive. He didn't want to say that in my dream. I could tell, but he was just trying to say, it needs medical attention. And then my dream stopped because my dog woke me up. And woke me up earlier than I normally get up. And so that dream ended, and I thought, oh, geez, I never got to really have closure in that dream, But I, as everybody does, I pick up my cell phone and I start my day, and I'm looking, and I have this app on my phone that talks about the, things that are happening in the neighborhood. And the one that popped up first was someone alerting everybody of a dog that was dead on the side of the road.
Oh.
And the description of the dog was the same as what I gave my husband in the morning when I was telling him of the dream.
Oh, that's a shame.
It was a tan dog with a white chest and pit bull mix. And, Yeah. So in my, I'm thinking now, like, well, in my dream, was there something that I could have done, but this happens to me regularly. I'll dream something and then it will come true. I'll see it the next day. I had a dream where a woman that I did not know, seemed like a grandmother figure, came to me and said, tell Alejandro I love him.
Alejandro, there's a song,
Alejandro, yeah. Tell him I love him and I miss him. And I woke up and I asked my husband in the morning, I said, do you know of anyone named Alejandro? And he said, no, I don't. He works at a large manufacturing company. He said, no, I don't know anybody with that name. And I didn't either. And I just kind of brushed it off and ran about my day running errands. And I was out and I knew my car was needing to probably be I needed to trade it in. I needed a new car. And I drove by this car dealership and I thought, just spur of the moment, I'll drive in. I talked to a woman there before on the phone and I'm going to see if she's there. So I just walked in, didn't plan to do this, walked in, said, I forget her name. I asked if she was there and they said, just a minute, we'll get her. And I waited and pretty soon the receptionist came back out and said, I'm sorry, she had to leave on an emergency. I'll get somebody else to help you. And I waited, and who do you think came out to help me?
Alejandro.
Yes. Alejandro. Wow. And it was really, how many times I've only met one Alejandro in my life, and that was it. And
did you tell him?
I did not. It has. And that's where the unwitting, I call myself an unwitting clairvoyant. That's where the unwitting comes in.
Mind you, if you'd said those words, let's face it, Stephanie, if you said, Alejandro, I love you, what would he have done?
Yeah.
I've just met you. That was quick.
Right. Or your grandma came to me last night and, Yeah. I knew it was his grandma. And what I did do, so I didn't know how to approach it really. I test drove a car with him and I was sitting right there with him and I was thinking, okay, when is a good time? And I just didn't have a good time to tell him. But a couple days later, I phoned and I spoke with the woman that I originally was supposed to meet with. And I said, this is going to sound crazy, I know, but I have to tell you this. And I told her, and she said he had recently lost his grandmother.
Oh, so she
and that his grandmother raised him. And so she said, I'll relay that message.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've been looking at the contents of your book, and your book is very good to read. It's no really long, complicated words that I can't pronounce, It's very, very easy for me to read, so that's what I like about your book. But
thank you.
There's something in Black-Eyed Children. A visit from Black-Eyed Children, and that should get you going, Mark. You know more about them than me.
Well, not that I know much about them, but other than the phenomenon itself.
Send a couple around, so then you'll soon find out.
Have you had any experiences with them?
No, I haven't. We've interviewed several researchers who've written books on Black-Eyed Children, Nick Redfern, and who was the other gentleman? He actually really started the whole phenomenon on the talk radio circuit. But
yes.
But yeah, I've never encountered that myself.
Yeah, I did not. This happened to me in the 80s, and I was actually listening to a radio show on my way to work in like 2000 and it had to been 2010 or 11, and I heard them talking about it, and I just thought, oh my goodness, that explains that event that my sister and I had. So it was really terrifying.
Well,
What happened?
We'll go into detail.
We were home. My sister, I was about a junior, I think, in high school, and my sister was my sister was a first year. She was 2 years ahead of me. She was in college, and my parents we were both living at home, and my parents had left for the night to go play cards, and it was probably about like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. It was in the fall, and so it got dark pretty quick, after sunset. It was pretty dark out, and I took our little dog out to go to the bathroom, as we normally do, out of the side of our house there off our kitchen, and she went out and she did her business and came back in, and she headed right for underneath our couch, and that's pretty unusual. She only does that in like a thunderstorm. It was raining, but it wasn't thundering. And it was just kind of peculiar behavior. And all of a sudden, we got a knock on the door. And my sister just went to open it without looking at who it was. And I quickly stepped in front of her, and I locked the door, and I just said, "What are you doing?" And I looked out, and I saw this family, and it was a woman, and I think there were like 5 children around her, just huddled around, and it was just pouring rain. And my sister, at that moment, I said, the mother was saying, let us in. And my sister was saying, open the door, let them in, and she was in almost like a trance. That's the best way to describe it. She wanted to open up the door, which was just uncharacteristic of my sister. I mean, here we were home alone, and she's going to open up the door for them. And every time I looked back through the curtains of the door, the kids would seem to get older and change. And it was, the woman was holding a baby, and at first I thought I saw that it was a baby, and then I look again and it's not a baby. It was just, and then I said to my sister, I said, we need to call the police. And she's sitting and she's just staring at me, and she's repeating the words of what the woman is saying outside. And so somehow they got to my sister and not me. And thank goodness, I just, I barred my sister from opening the door, and I told the woman, I said, we can't help you. I'm calling the police. And I finally had to take the phone from my sister, and I called the police myself.
You did?
But they were banging. She was banging on the door, and she was just, let us in, let us in. And, at first it started kind of peaceful. When I first looked out, they were, it looked like a family in need. And then it just got more dramatic and scarier. And they went from the first step, then the next step, and then right to the screen door. And they were trying the doorknob, and they were trying to get in, and they were saying, just repeated, let us in, let us in. And
it's strange, isn't it? How they're like vampires, really, Mark. When you think about it, they need to have an invite in.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
whether it's into a car or anything, A friend of mine had that. He was in parking lots in America, outside some shops, when this young girl came up to the car window, and it was the same sort of thing. And when she looked up, he saw that her eyes were very, very dark and black, and she kept asking to get into the car.
Yes,
but his gut feeling was telling him different.
Yeah,
and eventually he drove off.
Yeah, their eyes are just black marbles, and they don't when they're saying "let us in," I just remember she just lacked emotion for. I mean, if I was in that situation and in just pouring down rain without an umbrella, and all those children, I would be probably in tears. I would be a little bit more way more frantic than she was. She was just it was an eerie calmness.
Did she or the kids look like they were wet? Or were they standing under your porch?
No, there was no porch. There's a little overhang over the door, but at first they were not in that. They were standing just in it, and it was a downpour. What's really strange is that I was just out, just a split second before with our dog, and our street is so open that you can look to the left and the right. There's big lawns, and I would have seen them. I would have heard these kids. The amount of time that it would have taken to get to where they were and to walk up our driveway and everything. I mean, they would have been at the end of our driveway by the time I let our dog in. So, I would have heard them or seen them, or because there's a street light at the end of our driveway.
Well,
yeah, they just popped up, and then they're just so insistent, and it gradually built from this let us in, kind of we need help, to just sheer like you've got to let us in, like this urgency was beyond, yeah, it was really scary, frightening. And then when we called the police, and I got my sister to kind of come back to me and to talk, and she came back too, basically. I looked out, and they were nowhere to be found on the street.
What interests me about your experience is I've read David Weatherly. There we go. Remembered his name. Both David Weatherly and Nick Redfern's books and all the different stories that they've told. And your experience had the most beings, as I'll call them, at one time. Then usually they show up in like groups of 2 or 3 or even singular, but to have a woman and 5 kids, so you're talking about 6 people, or if you want to call them people, trying to get in. I mean, that's the most I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because they wanted to make you sympathetic to them.
Well, usually the stories of black-eyed children, they'll like have a couple of them or one or whatnot, and they'll have a sob story. They'll say, "Oh, I'm lost. I can't find my parents. Can I come in and use your phone, or can I use your bathroom?" And they have a kind of a sob story, and they're always asking not only to be let in, but they're asking for help. And doing everything they can to play on your sympathies to let them in. But most people, of course, also say that they immediately feel something's off about them. There's something not right. And then, of course, that's when they notice that the eyes are black.
Mm. Yeah.
It's like my friend. Sorry?
Oh, the eyes don't look human.
No.
They're and then in the children, I remember they looked older. The eyes looked older, if that makes sense. They were for their age. So
Well, my friend, the girl that came up to his car, or was at his car, she suddenly appeared there as well. He never saw her walk up to it or anything. Yeah. Her excuse was she was late home. She was going to get into a lot of trouble. Could he give her a lift? That's what she wanted. But you're the first person I have spoken to that says that she sort of saw them, or you sort of saw them actually change and become older, and as if they're morphing into something else.
Well,
with the urgency to get in, they changed. So especially the oldest boy, he became almost as old as his mom by the time they were at the screen door. I mean, there was no real difference in the age, really. It was,
that's a big no then, isn't it?
yeah.
Well, you see, we have to wonder, what are they? And they're obviously not children, in my opinion. And it's only my opinion because I have nothing really to base it on other than all of the research and stories I've read and hearing accounts like yours. You're definitely dealing with non-human entities, possibly interdimensional, and they're definitely shapeshifters. They're able to either physically shapeshift or, and this is common in the UFO phenomenon, they're able to present a screen image, almost like a hologram, that you see in your mind. You see them a certain way, even though they're not that way. It's where a lot of people in abduction cases, the famous Barney and Betty Hill case, when they first saw the creatures, they looked like people dressed in military uniforms. And it wasn't until they went under hypnosis that the reality of what they were seeing came out. So it's a screen memory. And I think that they, again, either physically shapeshift or they're presenting a projection in your mind of what they're supposed to look like. Possibly because they were getting desperate. Maybe they were on a limited time window to try to get into your house. They started getting desperate, maybe a little angry, and they started losing control of their projection. That's exactly what it was. And I the way that they projected themselves, I wrote in my book, it reminded me of an old photo in my grandma's photo album from her childhood on the farm that she grew up in Ludington. The clothing, the way that they were dressed wasn't 80s style clothing. It was like 1940s, which was interesting. So were they dressing in a way that reminded me of old photographs? Because I used to draw old photographs from my grandma, and I looked through her photo album. So did they make themselves look like that because it would be kind of familiar for me, or I would feel like they were connected to my grandma somehow, or the farm? It's kind of interesting how they do that.
Did your sister describe them the same way as you, Stephanie, or different?
Same way, and it was a couple of years ago. I asked my sister about it. I said, "Do you remember that?" And she said, "Oh yeah." She said, "I was going to let them in." She said, "I don't know what came over me." She said, "I just saw the woman and the children, and I was going to let them in." Yeah.
There's another. It's very similar to another phenomenon, which is especially known in UFO experience cases, is the Men in Black. When the Men in Black show up after somebody sees a UFO and they threaten them to be quiet or whatnot, they're always dressed like they're out of the 1950s. And even the cars they drive, the black sedans, are 1950s vintage cars. They look brand new, but it's like they can't quite get the clothing right or the year right. So it's a very similar phenomenon, and they sometimes can just appear and disappear.
Maybe they got a limited wardrobe.
Yeah, they need to start working with a better costume company.
Better costume. Yeah, and it may be a better line than "let us in, open the door," with when you don't know somebody. I mean, that was the thing. Like, we had only the little lock on the doorknob. We didn't have a deadbolt on this door. It was just on the doorknob. That was the only thing that was separating us from them at the time. And I was terrified, and my sister wasn't.
Well, the big question everybody asks is, well, what would happen if somebody ever let them in? And the thing is, I think if you let them in, you'd disappear. Now, there's only one account I've ever read, and I can't say that this is a true story or not. I mean, it's just an account that I heard of one person who actually let the kids in to the house to use the phone. And he walked down the hallway and thinking they were going to follow him. And when we turned around, the kids are just staring at him in the hallway. And they said, "We've come to collect you."
Oh, my goodness.
And the guy totally freaked out and actually ran out the back door out of the house and called the police. And when they came back, then nobody was there, of course.
Right. And can't find them anywhere to be found.
No, they just vanish.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
the
it's
hunters, Stephanie. What's this about the hunters?
That's a story about a job that I took, and that was the night before my first day of that new job. And it's just a span of time that I cannot account for. I don't know how I got from seeing them around my car and being alone in a cabin without a way to lock a door, or, there were no cell phones back in the day. I was just there with my dog, who's a Rottweiler, and she and I were, just watching them going around my car and talking amongst themselves. And
what did they look like?
Very, very tall, military, just very robotic in their movements. They all looked the same. And they were just walking around my car, and I remember there were ducks in the front yard and swimming in the ponds, just a few feet from them, and they didn't seem to be fazed by them. But they had to have been close to 7 feet tall or taller, just gauging by the height of my car at the time. And that was the night before my first day of the job. And I went from seeing them at my car to the next day at my job. I don't remember getting ready for work. I mean, I would have been
so you had missing
fixing
time.
my hair. Yeah, missing time. I don't know what happened. And I also, it was very uncharacteristic of me that I didn't pick up the phone and, call the police. I saw one of the figures going by the door to get into the cabin. I saw his shadow there. I just felt like there was nothing to fear, which, a woman alone with, I think there were 5 men around my car and one at the back door, and it was late at night. And another thing that's strange is my dog never barked. They
give you a feeling of peace, don't they?
Yeah.
What do you think they were, Mark? Sorry, Stephanie.
Oh no, that's okay. I just felt like I was.
And you say they were robotic in their movements. Their movements were out.
Have you had many experiences either with missing time, or possibly even seeing UFOs?
I've had one other experience where it almost was like I can only describe it as if you just hit rewind right now and how you're looking at something. I literally saw it rewind and go back. That was absolutely bizarre. I mean, it went back in time right there. That was strange. I've never seen a UFO that, nothing that, well, actually, I can't say never. I believe I did on my way to work one day. I thought it was the Goodyear blimp. And it actually, I was looking at it, and it was this foil-lined capsule, and it was about 11 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was quite far in the distance, and I was driving on the highway, and I thought it was really unusual that no cars were pulling off and seeing this in the sky. And I thought, well, if it's a Goodyear blimp, I'll see it. It'll, as I get closer, it'll get bigger, and I'll see what it's tethered to, or what it says on it, or what it is. And as I started to drive further, it went behind clouds, and then when the cloud moved, it was gone. So, and it was a silver capsule. But that's the only time I've seen it, and it was about 2010, 2011.
Did you have any imaginary friends when you were growing up?
No, I didn't. No, I had an older sister that had imaginary friends. Mm-hmm. But no, I never had any.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because my gut is telling me that you're more connected with this type of phenomenon than you even realize.
With the extraterrestrial, or?
And I hate even using that word. Because I think, you think extraterrestrial, aliens from another planet. And I'm not convinced that's what we're dealing with. I'm maybe in some cases, but when you start getting all of this type of high strangeness involved, missing time, black-eyed kids, seeing strange beings, screen memories, I lean a little bit more towards the interdimensional side of the spectrum. Yeah.
And I do mention in my book 2 instances where, just strange. I was in school, Rhode Island School of Design. One of them, real quick, I'll tell you. It was lunchtime, and I was walking to my boyfriend's apartment, and normally the street would be bustling, and it was really quiet, and I was the only one walking on the street, and I saw a gentleman going into his car, and I love cars, love makes and models, and I'm kind of a car geek. And I looked at him and I thought, he doesn't match that car. He doesn't, that's not his car. And I intuitively at the time, I just picked up on that too. Now that I look back, I knew that it wasn't his car. Anyway, I walked by him and he started just chasing me. So I was running for my life, basically. He was just hightailing it right after me, and I ran over, I high jumped over fences in people's backyards. I just knew how much danger I was in, that if he was going to get me, that was going to be it, and that's happened to me as I've gotten older, and I've shared that with friends. They're like, geez, how many times has this happened to just one person? I've had it happen multiple times to me. So, another time a black limousine pulled up, the window rolled down. I saw 5 men, all in black suits, and the windows were all shaded. And he said to me, do you know where, I forget what the name of it, I think it's Angel and Waterman streets are. And I looked at him and I was like, wait a minute, Stephanie, we're standing at Angel and Waterman. And just as I thought that, I heard in my head, run. And as I heard run, the door opened and he started getting out. And I ran in front of traffic and just said a few choice words to him because I was so scared. And I ran in, there was an art store, and I ran right into the art store there. But
what was I talking about? Men in Black?
They all look the same too, which was odd.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never thought of them as the Men in Black, but they all had the same haircut, same hair color, same stature, everything. Even the driver he looked the same. It was like, I was looking at like 5 what is that? Not quadruplets, but yeah, they all, yeah. But so that happened, and recently it happened as well. And my husband and I were walking a couple months ago. Similar thing happened. We got a car pulled over. We were walking our dogs, pulled over, and asked us if we knew where a safety office was. And we were actually standing in front of a sign that said safety office with an arrow pointing.
See, this type of phenomenon fascinates me to no end because of the high strangeness, because of the fact that you can't just put a label on it and explain it. It's probably one of those types of phenomenon that's just a bit beyond our comprehension to fully understand. I mean, at one point it seems like you're dealing with physical entities, physical beings, and yet there's such a high paranormal aspect to them, between the fact that they're throwing up screen memories or projections and wanting you to see something that's not real. And there's that sense of menace about them. And, you know, I know a few researchers who jump right to the demon category. It's like, oh, it's demons. It's like, not so fast. I don't believe in that traditional demons. Although I will acknowledge that sometimes there's some nasty things out there that, you know, don't wish us well. And who knows what their real agenda is.
Yeah, I've had, a couple, when I was writing my book and reliving them, and even this one that happened a couple of months ago, I had some friends say, well, you know, you just have to stop running and face them, you know. And I also, I think that might not be the greatest advice because, I don't know. I just don't, you know.
Well,
what would they do? Where would I go? Or what would, you know, I don't really want to know that. So I just.
Doesn't bear thinking about.
Yeah. Like this last time I told my husband, I said, I'm out of here. And I just ran, and so did he. He had one dog, I had the other, and I ran so fast. I just ran all the way home. Because I just saw the car pulling up, and it went over on our side of the road, which is the opposite side. So it went over, and it's a dark black car, black windows. And then when he rolled it down, it was nobody I've ever seen before. It didn't look like he fit in around, you know, where we live. Something was odd about him. And then when he asked that question, and I knew where I was standing in front of that sign, I just thought, no, before anybody else gets out of the car, I'm going to run. So,
well, you heard the voice in your head tell you to run.
No,
yeah,
that was the other.
That was in the past. Yeah. And I've always run. I've outrun them, or I've just turned around and, you know, I've gotten kind of that, I trusted my gut and, just gotten out of there. But part of me does wonder, you know, like my friends are saying, well, just stand your ground and, see what happens. But I don't know if I want to do that.
That worked out really well in Stranger Things season 2.
Okay.
If you watched it, you know what I mean.
I have not watched it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So standing your ground sometimes, unless you're like fully armed, you know, sometimes running is the best course of action. I'm wondering if whoever these entities are, and I'll call them entities because I honestly just don't know what they are, even though they parts of it seem to be related to UFO phenomenon, but not. Because of your abilities that you've had all of your life, you've just recently, you know, come into accepting them. You know, people like you seem to shine a little brighter to to those that are more sensitive.
Moths around a light bulb.
Yes. An example is like people who are clairvoyant or they can see or hear spirits, and they always seem to attract them, and it's like because they're glowing brighter, and so they're brighter than everybody else around them, and it attracts them like moths to a flame. But it's interesting that it's not just spirits that are attracted to you, that it seems like there's this other type of phenomenon that's surrounding you, that you've caught their interest for whatever reason.
Yeah, and they check in on me. I guess that's the nicest way I can put it. Yeah.
Now,
so,
don't let them check in on you.
Yeah.
You run, girl.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing you can do is put up your own wall of protection, of psychic protection, either surrounding yourself with intense bright light, if you do have, spiritual religious beliefs, calling on God or, whoever. But that helps expand your own energy. And and that energy can repel negative forces at times. That's something to think about, is for self-protection.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about...
Or be Mark, or be like me.
Well, you tell them to naff off, so...
Yeah. Up goes the hand, and it's naff off.
Yeah.
She's done that a few times, as something comes up and gets in her face, and it's just like she gives them the tood.
Yeah, I do.
Do you think that would work in my situation?
It's all to do with the amount of energy you're putting out.
Yeah.
With me,
See, I think it's a different situation. Irene, because she has dealt with this she's had her own experiences all of her life, and has a very, very strong energy and personality. And so most things know not to mess with her. But something else, in again, this is strictly just my opinion. It's only what my own intuition is telling me. Something else has a great interest in you, is involved with you. I think you're having more experiences than you remember. And, just standing your ground may not work.
Yeah.
I mean, if you stood your ground, maybe a couple hours had passed and you'd wake up and you're somewhere else, like something had happened. You were taken. I don't know. Now, do I think any harm would come to you? No, yes. I can honestly say I don't know. It's like the people with the black-eyed kids at the door, and what you experienced. What would have happened if you would have let them in?
Right. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with it. And I've consulted like a defense instructor and personal, defense, and he strongly suggests running. But yeah, my gut
always go with your gut instinct.
Yeah, trust my gut and continue to run. I had one time that this happened. I had a large dog with me. I try to either walk, not at night or with someone too. So, but even this last time I was walking with my husband, and it didn't stop them. So, so many times that it happens, you just have to wonder. And I don't know if my light shines brighter or, what's happening.
Well, we've talked about several fairly negative or scary things that have happened to you. What are some of the more positive or enlightening experiences that you've had?
A couple. I mean, this is really quick. I woke up and Irene, being a parrot owner, you'll appreciate this one. I used to have a canary, a little yellow canary that I loved, and it passed away. And one morning I woke up and I thought, I wish I could get another canary, and And then I was reminded of that they're a little bit messy, and you have to clean up the seeds under the cage. And so I'm kind of talking myself out of it, but I'm thinking, oh, I really miss that bird, And I get to my office, and I was teaching at the time, and sitting on my big table that I have in the middle of my office is a little bag, and the light is on, and I open up my office door, and inside the bag is a yellow canary, a sculpture of a yellow canary.
Oh.
And a student of mine gave it to me.
That's nice.
What she didn't, how does that happen? I visualize the yellow canary, I see it, and then I get to work, and there it is. And it was kind of funny because that's probably, it's sitting right on my desk here now, and that's the only bird that I'll have, So
well, you can have my parrot Pickles.
Okay.
I'll tell you, you talk about seed under the cage. Every day I have to hoover it up. And parrot is parrot seed, so it's bigger than canary or budgie seed.
Yeah.
And what he does is he gets down on the bottom of the cage and he scratches up like a chicken until it all goes flying out the cage. And it's everywhere, literally everywhere.
Yeah, they are something. That's funny. I had another instance when I was teaching to the assistant, the admin assistant, lost her father, and it was the first Christmas without him. And she was talking to me, and as I'm talking to her, her dad comes into the conversation, and I can see him. She can't see him, but he's standing right there with us. And she didn't know any of my abilities. I hadn't told anyone. And all of a sudden, I just blurted out to her. I said, "Why did your dad nail the Christmas tree to the wooden floor? Didn't that hurt your floor?" And because he had shown me that that's how they celebrated Christmas, that he said, I didn't put the Christmas tree in anything. I just nailed it to the floor. And he showed me it. And so I blurted it out. I asked her, and she looked at me, and she just is like she saw a ghost, she just flew backwards, and she said, "How would you know that?" And I had to come clean on that one. So I had to tell her of my abilities. And that's the thing about it and that's part of this book is really talking about my abilities and sharing them. And it's not that everybody isn't a believer in this. And that's where it's difficult because some people think, like with the Alejandro story, how do you approach that without seeming completely off your rocker, But so it's always been a struggle for me to tell people. And with this book, I can't hide behind anything anymore. I am who I am, my light is shining. And but yeah, there's
Stephanie, I've been sitting here. And up on one of the big screens, I've got your contents of your book. And I keep staring at one in particular, A Grandfather's Visit.
Yes.
Was that your grandfather?
No, that wasn't. That was someone that I don't know. That came to me. I will have complete strangers, just like Alejandro's grandmother, come to me and ask me for help or ask me to, reach out to their loved ones. And that was a story. His granddaughter had been murdered. And he told me who did it. And he told me how the story was going to unfold. And it unfolded on the news, just like the grandfather told me. And it was unbelievable. But that was a difficult one for me because it was a child, and it just I didn't know, I felt his pain and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to call, if I could call the police and tell them what had happened, and tell them that they were wrong. Would they have believed me? And it was, so I shared it with my husband, and I just watched it unfold, and I thought if they don't arrest the boyfriend of the mother, then I would call the police, because that's where the grandfather said
it is a difficult. Yeah, it's a difficult situation because unless you can find a policeman or somebody in the police force, high up in the police force, that's more a believer in this stuff, then you do get poo-pooed as a nutcase.
Right. You do.
Yeah.
You do. And, I did have one instance where I dreamt, this woman came to me and showed me where, they could find her body. And she gave me the name of the lake, and she showed me a cottage on the lake, and very descriptive. I mean, I love to draw, so I drew the cabin. I wrote down the name of the lake, and then woke up in the morning and actually forgot about it. And I was in the car with my husband and my daughter, and I said, "Oh my goodness, I just remembered a dream I had last night." And I told them of the dream, and being a 20-year-old, my daughter gets right on Google Maps and looks up the lake.
Yeah.
And she said, "Mom, there is a lake by that name." And then she said, "Describe the cottage to me." And I described a cottage, and she zoomed in with Google Earth, and there it was.
Yeah.
Exactly how I described it. So
yeah, it is a shame actually, because that you do get when you report these things, you can get labelled as being a bit of a fairy head. But the point is, if it's something local, not only do you get labelled as a fairy head, you could also get labelled as a suspect. Right. How do you know this?
Right.
Yeah. You're telling me it's a dream. Yeah, come on. There's more to it than that. You know too much. In this instance, it was so strong, and there were so many direct hits. I did call the cold case because this was a murder that happened in the 90s. I spoke with an FBI detective for about an hour on the phone, and he said that he really was a believer. Sorry, my dogs are barking. Can hear them. And I was worried about mine.
Hopefully there's no black-eyed children at the front door.
No. Anyway, he did believe me, and he told me, he gave me some great advice. He said to sleep with a recorder next to my bed, and if this happened again, just to recite everything in the recorder. But he did end up giving me a call back too for more information, so that was I was happy to help out. But that was the first time that happened, and that I got somebody that did believe in these things. So that was nice. Or he told me. I did feel like he was being honest with me. So
yeah, no, that's good. That's good that you found somebody in the police, FBI. Then that was a believer that there are strange things that come up.
But it's just interesting. But I'll get. I'll have other things, see other things, even people around me, see things in the future for them, or I'll get a name will come to me, and I'll have a message for somebody, and anybody who knows me, in my family, I'll be sure to tell them, what's come through. But for complete strangers, going up to somebody and saying, "Hey, I just saw this for you," I haven't quite worked my way up to that yet. But
now, you primarily, your career is as a graphic designer.
Yes.
So with these abilities, do you do anything with these abilities, or things just happen to you and you've decided to write a book with them? Do you work with people or do readings for people?
I have been since I've published this book. A lot of people have. That's the reason why I published the book, was because I've always had this belief: if things have happened like this to me, and I'm feeling this way, I'm sure that there are 10 other people that feel this way or have these things that have happened to them. And so it's my way of connecting with those people. I'm hoping through this book, but it has been unbelievable. The people that have written to me and shared stories with me that they've never shared with anybody else before, or just, it's kind of bringing this out into the open. And, they see me as being brave for telling my story and telling who I am and being true to myself. So it's kind of giving them permission to do the same, which is great. If they, several people have emailed me and have called me for readings, and I'm happy to help people connect with, anyone who's passed or, I had someone today, ask if I could do a reading regarding her sons, and so I'm happy to help people in any way that I can. I feel like I've been given this as a gift and to help people, and that's what I do enjoy doing that. So
you do actually see it as a gift. Sometimes I see it sometimes as a gift, but most of the time as a curse.
Yeah.
But then again, I've been at it for 60 odd years, maybe longer.
I would agree with you on that, the curse, because that's the majority of my life is, what can you do with this information? Who do you tell without appearing nuts? So I would agree with you on that. And it's been difficult. It hasn't been easy. But the ability to have, someone asked me about their grandfather passing in a mysterious way, and the ability for me to confirm how he passed, and also get specific names for people. I mean, I'll get the exact name of a brother, and I mean, because the person that's deceased is talking to me, they're standing right there, I can see them, and so it's pretty amazing the amount of detail that I get, and the accuracy and the direct. I call them direct hits and direct confirmation, because that's what it is. I mean, it's very comforting to people. And I've always told people that the deceased people that I talk to are more alive than some people here on Earth. They're just, they're full of life. I don't know has that been your experience?
I don't know. My experience. Did you say? Or did you say, is that the new I thought you said, is that the new experience? No. Is that my experience?
Yeah, she asked if that was your experience.
Yeah. I just think life after death, people are always asking me about, their deceased relatives. And when they come to me, I had one instance where the person didn't know that he was passed.
And I've had plenty of them.
Yeah. And when I shared that he was very confrontational. He said, no, I'm getting back. I'm going to come back.
No, I've had plenty of those.
Yeah.
But I used to do what you were doing years ago, and then I decided I'd take a break from it all. I still see stuff all over the place. I still hear voices, and that's without a drink. I'll tell everybody that. But I changed I changed my path completely. I still work in it to a certain degree when I get assigned I get a special assignment, then I will use my abilities there. But otherwise, I now write books and I do this radio show. And I feel far better now that, I've done it all, been there, got the T-shirt, learned everything I could learn from my experiences, because I've never ever read a book on any of this or anything like that. I now talk to people on the radio about it, but when I was actually doing it, I kept away. And in the early days, there wasn't even the internet. There were, I don't even remember a computer. I remember, I'm going before the mobile phones were the size of bricks, house bricks. So, and you couldn't get any books on this subject in the library or anything like that, even if you wanted them. So,
yeah, I haven't read. I haven't read any books about it.
I don't. And you don't want to, because you'll just programming yourself on other people's either experiences or, but some of it's crap. Yeah. You learn from within yourself through your own experiences, and that's how you learn to handle it.
Right. And I think you would agree. I'm not looking for an
fame or fortune.
Fame or fortune. And I'm not looking for any more of this ability, No. So,
no, you just let it go the way it is. Yeah. You see, I went through various stages of learning, but I feel that I was learned from a higher source. In other words, I'd go through the usual mediumship bit where you were doing things and telling my friends stuff, and, or I'd go to their houses for a cup of tea, and while I was there, I'd be giving them information about their loved ones on the other side or whatever. From there, I went into trance mediumship. From there, I went to something else. It was all learning stages to who I am and what I am now. Mm-hmm. So it was like molding me into the person I am now. If something walked through this door now, if it was bad and negative, it would get the hand up and the F off. If
love that.
If it was good, I'd turn it around and tell it to take a seat on the sofa. I'll deal with it in a moment. But that's the type of person I am. My energy is so high, and the only thing that scares me is bloody those big house spiders that are coming in lately, and they don't even really scare me. I just tell them, I just sit there and hope they crawl away somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Did you see the spider in my book?
No.
I drew a spider, and I wanted it to look like it was sitting on the page of the book. That's how so you'll see it. It's on page 43.
Oh, I'll take a look.
It'll jump out.
Yeah. But just let yourself go with it. Just don't force yourself, and certainly don't read all this internet shite that's out there.
Right.
You know what's right by your own inner feelings.
Yes.
You don't, if I want to know the answer to a question, I just say to myself, okay, this is a question. Give me the answer, Irene. And within no time, I've got the answer. Mm-hmm. It comes from, who it comes from, it doesn't matter, Right. The answer's there.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I think, Mark, that's graphic design to me is just, I'm so glad that I have it and that I have the ability to create visually too, and to draw, and because it's not that it's a distraction, but it's just another love of what I do. So it's great.
Yeah. But,
Thank you for that, though. It is a learning.
It is. It's an inner learning. Learning.
Mm-hmm.
Not the regurgitated shite that's out on the internet that everybody goes through and everybody writes their articles about, and they open up sites saying the same thing, practically word for word.
Yes,
it's not that at all.
Well,
it's not at all.
Stephanie,
and have you noticed as well that many people that are like this are very artistic? In lots of ways. I do watercolors. I listen to music.
You're the first person who said that, but that is interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's it.
I never drew that connection, but
yeah. Okay. And I'm sorry if I've insulted anybody today by saying that half of the stuff on the internet is regurgitated shite.
I think more than half, but that's me too.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. Well, Stephanie, your book Clairvoyage, where can people find that?
That's available on Amazon, and it's also available on Audible and Kindle. And you can. I just had someone order it through their bookstore too. Their bookstore placed an order, and they got it that way too. So,
and if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that? I said you have a website.
I do have a website. They can. My email address is contact@stephaniemilanowski.com. So they can email me. That's a great way to connect with me. And my website is stephaniemilanowski.com, and there's links on my website to see my work and to see the book. And I have a blog there too about the book, and so
fantastic.
Happy.
And the name of the book is
Clairvoyage. Stories from a Highly Sensitive Life. Yeah.
Okay, people, go out there and get that book. Because I tell you, it's a good read.
Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. It's been wonderful talking with you, and there's been parts of our talk I'm going to go back and listen to again later because I'm really intrigued by some of your experiences.
Oh, thank you. Well, and I would love to talk with you guys again. So anytime that you're free, or if any listeners have any questions for me, they can email me or reach out to you too, and you can let me know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
That'd be nice.
Thanks again, and thank you everyone for tuning into another edition of the Paranormal UK radio show, the flagship show here on the Paranormal UK radio network. And Irene, where can people find us?
Everywhere, people, everywhere.
You are.
I say that with enthusiasm, don't I?
Yes, you do. All right, thank you everybody. We'll be back again next week with a brand new show. So everyone take care, and we'll see you soon. Stephanie and Irene, we'll talk to you later.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.